safety, prosperity, and peace. Not only have our citizens endured domestic disaster, but they've lived through one international humiliation after another, one after another. This is the legacy of Hillary Clinton: death, destruction, terrorism, and weakness. My message is that things have to change, and they have to change right now. Americanism, not globalism. Americanism, not globalism. Americanism, not globalism will be our credo. I will fight for you, and I will win for you. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. God bless you, and good night. I love you.
Well, good day there, folks. It's Federico Cardella with Inspo News, and this story in particular has been very difficult because I wanted to be fair, I wanted to be honest, I want to be transparent about the research, and frankly, for a long time, I've really liked and admired Mike Pence, former governor of the great state of Indiana. Now, on appearance, he and Karen Pence seem to have many admirable qualities. A nice Christian couple and a beautiful family, and I don't doubt his Christian faith one iota. But there have been things that he and Karen have said and done, which has caused me great concern over his loyalty to the president, and I think it should concern you too. And so I wanted to understand who this man was right from the beginning. And so unlike President Trump, Mike Pence had left-wing leanings when he was in college. Unlike the Wharton School of Business, he was a big fan of Jimmy Carter, and in being raised a devout Catholic, and I understand that because I was too, he was tutored in classic liberation theology, a form of religious Che Guevara that believes in government and religion working together to redistribute wealth. A milder form of nauseating communism, such as found in Argentinian government. Of course, this is where the current transnational socialist Pope is from, Pope Francis, to whom Mike Pence currently pays homage. I mean, in looking at his upbringing, you can see why he was for the TPP, the unfair NAFTA trade agreements of the Clintons, why he has such globalist tendencies and is over there in Europe with John McCain, exalting the West and not America, and saying he doesn't agree totally with our president in regards to NATO, the EU, and the globalist cause. It all makes sense when you look at the context in which this man was raised.
Pence himself was a Democrat for much of his youth. He idolized JFK and voted for Jimmy Carter over Ronald Reagan because why would you elect a movie star, he said.
Now again, I'll say this was a difficult report because Mike Pence is a good Christian man. I truly believe that. I also believe that he's pro-life. I believe that he's very sincere about that, he and his wife, and that their presence and speech at the March for Life in Washington right around the time of the inauguration was a wonderful experience. For many Christians, it was a breath of fresh air after 20 years of just being harangued by all these crazy baby-killing, left-wing liberal abortionists and a left-wing leaning judicial activist Supreme Court. We're not here to judge Mike Pence or his wife personally, nor to doubt their sincere faith in Christ, but we are here to perceive and discern and critique their political identity. What do they really believe regarding the Make America Great Again agenda? What do they believe as far as nationalism, national sovereignty? And even if they hold to liberal tenets, might these liberal tenets in some of these areas evolve as they become friends with the president? Or is that possible? Or could it be that Mike Pence, politically speaking, is a very ambitious man who's manipulated possibly by his wife, who wants him more than anything else to be president, and that we know secretly and behind closed doors despises President Donald J. Trump? And yes, it's well reported by a former staffer who would submit to a lie detector test that in fact she said of Donald Trump when the Billy Bush tapes came out that he was a vile and disgusting person. Now that was just a little over a year ago. Now it says in Proverbs, out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks. This is what the Lord said as well. So I'm a little concerned when people say these things, and I don't care when they said them. You can say, well, she said that before the inauguration and the Billy Bush tapes had just come out. Yes, but remember, she knew that that would 10 years prior. It was locker room banter. Yes, you can't defend it, but I didn't respond by throwing stones at the president. I said, wow. And when he gave his life to the Lord, as according to James Dobson and Jerry Falwell Jr., that President Donald Trump gave his life to the Lord. I believe that, and I forgive people of their past sins. The fact that Mrs. Pence, Karen Pence, did not do that was a big turnoff for me. That was the first red flag I had about this couple. She was willing to throw pharisaical stones at a man for his old sins, sins that had been forgiven. He even called up Karen and Mike Pence to apologize. He didn't need to apologize to Karen Pence. Who is she? And why would she say that to a staffer if in her heart she didn't really despise President Trump in the first place? So there are some alerts regarding this couple. Whether or not they'll be loyal to this president is yet to be seen, but the indications we're getting is he's not being loyal. That he has gone over to Europe with John McCain and appeared at this Munich security summit that's been being held at the same location in Munich since 1963. Interestingly enough, it was an organization John Kennedy didn't really like, and that was the year he died, was the year of this organization, which I believe is a transnationalist, New World Order globalist convocation, much like the Bilderberger meetings and the private and secretive, almost mystical meetings of the Rothschildian banking cartel. But in this meeting, in the security summit in Munich, the American senators and the American participants there, including Mike Pence, boldly proclaimed in public of their allegiance to globalism and the cause of world peace through transnationalism, through putting the UN on steroids, by allowing the continued immigration of millions of angry, young, bearded Muslim males.
For decades, I have attended this conference. I cannot recall a year where its purpose was more necessary or more important. If ever there was a time to treat this question with a deadly seriousness, it is now. This question was real half a century ago, when Ewald von Kleist and the founders of this conference, indeed, it's why they first started coming to Munich. They did not assume that the West would survive, because they had seen its near annihilation. They saw open markets give way to beggar thy neighbor protectionism and the poverty that imposed. They saw world order fracture into clashing ethnic and nationalist passions and the misery that brought. They saw the rise of hostile great powers and the failure of deterrence and the wars that followed. From the ashes of the most awful calamity in human history was born what we call the West, a new and different and better kind of world order. one based not on blood and soil nationalism or spheres of influence or conquest of the weak by the strong, but rather on universal values, rule of law, open commerce, and respect for the indeed. The entire idea of the West is that it is open to any person or any nation that honors. That requires our persistent, painstaking effort, and that's why we come to Munich year after year after year. They would be alarmed by an increasing turn away from universal values and toward old ties of blood and race and sectarianism. They would be alarmed by the hardening resentment we see towards immigrants and refugees and minority groups, especially Muslims. They would be alarmed that more and more of our fellow citizens seem to be flirting with authoritarianism and romanticizing it as our moral equivalent. But what would alarm them most, I think, is a sense that many of our peoples, including in my own country, are giving up on the West, that they see it as a bad deal that we may be better off without, and that while Western nations still have the power to maintain our world order, it's unclear whether we have the will. I know there is profound concern across Europe and the world that America is laying down the mantle of global leadership. I can only speak for myself, but I do not believe that that is the message you will hear from all of the American leaders who cared enough to travel here to Munich this weekend. That's not the message you will hear from Vice President Mike Pence. That's not the message you will hear from Vice President Mike Pence. And that is certainly not the message you will hear tomorrow from our bipartisan congressional delegation. Make no mistake, my friends, these are dangerous times, but we cannot allow ourselves to question the rightness and goodness of the West. We must understand and learn from our mistakes, but we cannot be paralyzed by fear. We cannot give up on ourselves and on each other. That is the definition of decadence, and that's how world orders really do decline and fail. That is exactly what our adversaries want. This is their goal. They have no meaningful allies, so they seek to sow dissent among us and divide us from each other. They know that their power and influence are inferior to ours, so they seek to subvert us and erode our resolve to resist and terrorize us. We must take our own side in this fight. We must be vigilant. We must persevere. And through it all, we must never, never cease to believe in the moral superiority of our own values. That's why we come to Munich. That's why we come to Munich, year in and year out. Even now, when the temptation to despair is greatest, I refuse to accept the end of the West. I refuse to accept the demise of our world order. I refuse to accept that our greatest triumphs cannot once again spring from our moments of greatest peril as they have so many times before. I refuse to accept that our values are morally equivalent to those of our adversaries. I am a proud, unapologetic believer in the West. I believe we must always, always stand up for it, for if we do not, who will?
I have a great deal of respect for John McCain.
Do you think he went too far?
You could say yes. That's okay. That one you could say.
Chancellor Merkel, the Secretary General, distinguished colleagues, and honored guests. In my still new capacity as Vice President, I am honored and humbled to have the privilege to address this important annual forum. Led by Senator John McCain. Please join me in welcoming my fellow Americans here with us today. It's an honor to be with you all. Founded in 1963, the Munich Security Conference has long played an important role in international affairs.
So there you have it from their own mouths. It's just pure treason. Why all this fake government in Washington, this unelected shadow government in Washington, why it isn't all arrested by our U.S. military if there is any constitutionalists left there And so now we must be thinking about forming a new patriot party, a constitutionalist party. Our president is surrounded. He's fighting the good fight, but he needs our help. It's that simple. He can't do this alone. We're finding that out, that the treason runs deep. And for all of you QAnon fans who were thinking that Mueller was working with Trump, along with Sessions, to entrap pedophiles and corrupt officials, Mueller just subpoenaed Steve Bannon to testify against your president. Not only did we predict that the president would not be exonerated by Christmas, but that Mueller would carry this on to a multi-year thing to try to destroy the MAGA movement by the midterm elections. Then they'd get enough votes in the Congress to impeach the president.
If he is to be found guilty, there are others who also went along, who also must be found guilty. Ernst Janning said, "We succeeded beyond our wildest dreams." Why did we succeed, Your Honor? What about the rest of the world? Did it not know the intentions of the Third Reich? Did it not hear the words of Hitler's broadcast all over the world? Did it not read his intentions in Mein Kampf, published in every corner of the world? Where's the responsibility of the Soviet Union, who signed in 1939 the pact with Hitler, enabled him to make war? Are we now to find Russia guilty? Where's the responsibility of the Vatican, who signed in 1933 the Concordat with Hitler, giving him his first tremendous prestige? Are we now to find the Vatican guilty? Where's the responsibility of those American industrialists who helped Hitler to rebuild his armaments and profited by that rebuilding? Are we now to find the American industrialists guilty? No, Your Honor, no. Germany alone is not guilty. The whole world is as responsible for Hitler as Germany. It is an easy thing to condemn one man in the dark. It is easy to condemn the German people, to speak of the basic flaw in the German character that allowed Hitler to rise to power. But at the same time, comfortably ignore the basic flaw of character that made the Russians sign pacts with him, Winston Churchill praise him, American industrialists profit by him.
Shut up. On the one hand, you have the nationalist Trump and the Americans. On the other hand, we are very close to achieving our goals. To control the people, you must, control the production and the distribution of food. And we can control the people, depopulate sensitive areas in the world today that are lacking resources.
Well, I think the principle of sovereignty is the prevailing principle, but it is becoming modified because there are some universal principles that begin to limit the concept of absolute sovereignty. So I think if you look at the sovereignty is sort of an anachronistic or a slightly atavistic idea.
He is guilty. If he is, it's the world's guilt. No more, no less.
I mean, in 1940, a full year before we got into the war against the Nazis, even the Three Stooges and their producers knew who created them.
I tell you, gentlemen, there's no use arguing against facts. Our business is at a standstill, and we've got to do something about it.
You're right, Mr. Ixnay. Our munitions factories only show 5 million buckaroos profit for the first quarter of this year.
Think of it, Mr. Onay. Only 5 million while we're practically starving.
That's true, but we must remember that the kingdom of Moronica is at peace, Mr. Ixnay.
You're right, Mr. Amscray. But there's no money in peace.
No.
We must start a war.
Right. If the king wants only peace, then we must oust him and appoint a dictator.
That's it, a dictator.
Exactly. We must find someone who is stupid enough to do what we tell him.
Oh, but where can we find anyone that's stupid, Mr. Onay?
Let me see.
Well, what about it?
We must throw off the yoke of monarchy and make our country safe for hypocrisy. Item on. I try 55 Vorfeis, die Bescheuert, abhaben. Alles sieht die Polakheit, 55 Volks, abhaben. Ein Fight.
So these globalist traitors, John McCain and Mike Pence, aren't revealing to us anything that's new. Because if we as U.S. citizens don't act now, a tyranny far exceeding that of the Third Reich is coming to planet Earth. And if all wars are bankers' wars, then when somebody on Fox News continues to ask the silly question, why are they doing this? Why does the media hate Trump so bad? It's the Trump hate media. It's those old liberal Hillary people. They're looking at surface currents there. That's not what's causing this. This isn't even the old conservative versus liberal box. This isn't the GOP versus the Democratic box. You've got transnationalists in both parties. So again, folks, this doesn't have to be some crazy conspiracy theory with a bunch of people sitting around a round table in dark black capes, like a recent Taco Bell Illuminati commercial. No, just like very devout believers in a religion, the New World Order folks truly believe that nationalism is pernicious to world peace. And they have their actors and operatives, wittingly or unwittingly, trained in that worldview and that mindset all over the world, and in this country in particular, trying to portray this national sovereignty president. They truly believe that a one-world government with central command of the more intelligentsia, supreme genetic types should rule the rest of us. It's just that simple. It's been going on since the Tower of Babel.
No, no, no. Not God bless America. God damn America. God damn America.
What I'm shocked about is the fact that they would let this author inside the White House for a year. I mean, the president referred to him as a total loser and a fraud. Stephen Mueller just called him a garbage author, and yet they allowed him to wander around the White House for a year writing this book. So the notion that somebody would just be walking around the White House writing a book and then nobody went up to the president and said, did you actually authorize this and is this okay? I mean, Karl Rove or Rahm Emanuel in the Bush or Obama White Houses would have had that guy thrown out in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Los Angeles, strategist at Eldridge Industries and part owner of The Hollywood Reporter, Janice Min. Janice was one of 6 guests that attended the Steve Bannon Roger Ailes dinner party that was detailed in Michael Wolff's book. Janice, let's begin with you. I love the correspondence that you said you had back and forth with Michael Wolff when Michael was roaming around the West Wing and you were asking him, what exactly do they think you are doing there, Michael? And to which he responded what?
He said, I don't know what they think I'm doing. And different answers at different times would be, but I'm going to keep doing it until they tell me not to.
Had such a hostile relationship with Michael Wolff. You had everybody in the West Wing who had no idea who Michael Wolff was, which is just mind-blowing for people that are running the country, don't know who Michael Wolff was. All they had to do, and Jared Kushner and Donald Trump and people in the West Wing were in daily contact with Rupert Murdoch. If they just asked Murdoch about Michael Wolff, he would have said, get him the hell out of there now.
And, so shortly after that, Michael went in for the kill. This is Michael. You know, he is a shark. He went in for the kill and asked for access to the White House, and he got it. And, you know, from the second after the inauguration, and he was in there. But, you know, going back to the dinner party, I was blown away by the level of trust and confidence Steve Bannon and Roger Ailes had in Michael. He was clearly one of them.
So you have many of the New World Order pawns in place. We've seen the cast of traitors for the last several months on this channel. We've told you about the Susan Rices, the Barack Hussein Obamas, the Hillary Clintons, the Jim Comeys, the Robert Muellers, Rod Rosenstein, Andy McCabe, smaller fish in the pond like Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, who are just useful idiots for the New World Order. But the higher-ups, the elitists that are in all the branches of government, now especially the judiciary, this is where Obama laughs the loudest because, for example, he's got a judge, a buddy of his from Harvard in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, who's virtually blocking everything the DOJ and the administrative branch of President Trump is trying to accomplish in securing our borders, in immigration policy, extreme vetting, a partial Muslim ban, now the DACA, soon the sanctuary cities. They are fighting very hard. The New World Order court system in this country is very, very active right now, trying to tie President Trump's hands while at the same time trying to strangle him through Robert Mueller, through the D.C. left-wing court, Maryland, D.C. district attorney's offices, their liberal governors, neocon New World Order of judges appointed by either Bush or Obama-appointed Open Society George Soros judges. I mean, Mueller's cultivating left-wing juries, grand juries in Washington, all who voted for Hillary, to try to at least throw some more political mud at President Trump.
I object, Your Honor, and ask that the last question be stricken from the records. It is merely an attempt to influence this intelligent, broad-minded, and most intellectual jury.
Objection sustained.
For no reason other than to insult him for the midterm elections with some sort of phony indictment given by a partial left-wing judge and a jury in D.C. So we see all of this working together. These are all the little pawn moves of the New World Order, of the globalists. Now, the left-wing federal courts are the knights and the bishops of the New World Order. They are huge because they're tenured like a college professor. You can't remove them from office unless they're elected, which is rare. Most of them are appointed for life and can only be removed for like really ridiculous behavior unless the treason and sedition laws, which are very difficult to enforce, are put in their proper place. These judges are going to continue to try to tie our president's hands and keep this major cog on the wheel of the New World Order destruction of the West, i.e. the Muslim invasion, the Islamic invasion of Western nations must continue. These are their change agents. This is their army of choice. As with Catholic missions, the Vatican, World Vision, Trinity Broadcasting, and other Illuminati, anti-American, liberation theology, missionary organizations, which, by the way, brought in tens of thousands of illegal Muslims on Catholic ships to the ports of New Orleans. Many of them have gone up to Michigan. Many of them have somehow procured IDs and citizenship, or at least they're illegally voting and are trying to put this guy, Abdul Saeed, in the governor's race there up for election this coming May in the Democratic primary. But I mean, these federal judges are key. These pro-Islamist, open border, open society, George Soros judges are the key. Not only to continue the Muslim invasion and the change agents to come into this country to one day attack us from within, but to provide left-wing grand juries and judges willing to impeach or indict this president at the drop of a hat. And of course, their main advocate is Mike and Karen Pence. I mean, the bottom line here with Mike Pence is that true leaders are lions They're not lambs. They don't say what sounds nice. They don't ladder climb. I mean, lions are statesmen. Or in the case of Maggie Thatcher, stateswomen. They will speak truth regardless of the consequences because they're true believers in veritas, true believers in truth. Mike Pence isn't. Mike Pence is a political chameleon. That's why he can stand next to a Muslim dictator, as in Chamberlain style, and stand there without saying a word to defend the innocent Christians and religious minorities in Indonesia. He won't say a word. Why? Because of money. Why? Because of trade deals. Why? Because he doesn't want to offend the dictator, the Muslim, woman-hating, Christian-hating, Jew-hating, Buddhist-hating, gay-bashing dictator of Indonesia. Doesn't mention a word about human rights and the fact that Christian churches, Catholic churches, Presbyterian churches, Pentecostal churches, evangelical churches are being bulldozed down by his government forces and his district forces in order to please radical Muslims. And for all you Mike Pence fans out there, I apologize to you, but we here at Inspo News will speak the truth regardless of the consequences.
Mr. Speaker, I was, as you were, here on September 11th, 2001. I saw the skies filled with mud-brown smoke rising from the devastation at the Pentagon. And I felt that anger that every American felt then, and that continues to simmer in the lesser angels of our nature to this very hour. There is in my Heartland, Indiana district, Mr. Speaker, a small mosque in Muncie, Indiana, where each weekend a small community, less than 1,000 people of Arabic descent, gather to practice their religious faith, each of them contributing in important ways in our community. They reached me in the immediate hours after September 11th and expressed to me their concern as family people for their well-being in the wake of this attack that was unanimously affected by Arab extremists against our country. It was then that I issued a statement I read again today. I said then, the terrorists who attacked the World Trade Center and the Pentagon are not representative of the overwhelming majority of Arabs or Muslims in the United States, and that we could not allow anger at this horrible act to lead us to hate or discriminate against innocent individuals who happen to be of Middle Eastern descent. I said terror has no regard for religion or ethnicity. If we attack the innocent simply because of their ethnic status, we are no better than the terrorists who attacked us. We are no better than the terrorists who attacked us. We are no better than the terrorists who attacked us. I urge my fellow citizens to continue to embrace those ideals of the Declaration of Independence and understand that while we believe and have built a nation on the notion that we're all endowed by our Creator with inalienable rights, therefore we cannot and must not give voice of persecution or permit acts of discrimination against those among us who may be of Middle Eastern descent. Millions of Arab Americans, like those in my district, contribute daily in vital ways to our communities and our nation in every professional class: medicine, academia, engineering, and yes, Mr. Speaker, to the U.S. Armed Forces.
Let's be clear, though. Islam is not our adversary. Muslims are peaceful and tolerant people and have nothing whatsoever to do with terrorism.
The good book tells us, and what does the Lord require of you? To do justice, to love kindness, to walk humbly with your God. Let us, as we go into these difficult times and in the difficult days ahead, rededicate ourselves to practice justice and kindness toward every American citizen and visitor of Middle Eastern descent, that we might hold up those ideals that brave Americans fight to defend in these days. And I yield back.
Now, in all fairness to Mike Pence, he was obviously ill-informed when he made that speech in the well of the House of Representatives years ago. I mean, the 911 hijackers had nothing to do with Arab descent. It's not a racial issue. It's an ideological issue and always has been. The Quran is full of 114 verses of intolerant, totalitarian, seditious text which would come against our Constitution and try to build a nation within a nation. That's what we're concerned about here. Personally, we like Mike and Karen Pence. As I said earlier, they're good Christian people, but their political views are abhorrent. And to we here in Inspo News, there appears to be a lot of lip service to President Trump without a lot of loyalty and actions to back it. And our hope here is that Mike and Karen Pence change. Maybe they already have. We hope they have. Maybe they're the best friends in the world. They're totally loyal. But, just a few weeks ago, he wasn't being loyal. And you're judged often by who you associate with. I mean, he's very good friends with McCain and people that absolutely want the death of Trump. So we're concerned about that. We don't think that's politically smart to be having these sort of friends. We're also concerned about the women of our country. We don't like Surah 4. We think it's oppressive to women, and just for that reason alone, we don't want Muslims or Muslim men in this country. And Mike Pence, the fact is, he's a bleeding heart Muslim sympathizer. That's what neocons are about. The Bushes are the same way, the Romneys, all these GOP regulars like Lindsey Graham, Marco Rubio, Paul Ryan, they all assent to the view of the Vatican, the Pope. Let them in. There shouldn't be any borders, even though the Pope has walls around his Vatican. Oh, Donald Trump is stupid and not a Christian and want walls around the United States. I mean, it's hypocrisy. And we're detecting that in Mike Pence. So we're asking you to pray for Mike. This isn't a diatribe against him. This isn't to try to get people not to like him. But if you're praying for him, and if you want to know what good policy is, we're just trying to give a little bit of facts here to give people a little bit more perception as to what's going on behind the scenes with Karen and Mike Pence and the Trumps. There's no doubt when it comes to loyalty, this network is loyal to President Donald Trump, not Mike Pence.
Good morning.
Selamat pagi.
Thank you, President Widodo,
Terima
for
kasih,
hosting me here today. Thank you for your warm hospitality. The extraordinarily colorful welcome that we received from all the children as we approach this morning will be a memory for a lifetime. It is my great privilege to be here in Indonesia. My very first visit to Indonesia. Greetings to you. Appreciation for your kindness and outreach as a sign of the high value the United States places on our strategic partnership with Indonesia. As the second and third largest democracies in the world, our two countries share many common values. As the largest majority Muslim country, Indonesia's tradition of modern Islam, frankly, is an inspiration to the world, and we commend you and your people. In your nation, as in mine, religion unifies, it doesn't divide, including freedom, the rule of law, human rights, and religious diversity. The United States is proud to partner with Indonesia to promote and protect these values, the birthright of all people. And as President Widodo and I discussed, under President Donald Trump, the United States and Indonesia are going to work even more closely together for the mutual benefit of our nations, our people, and for the benefit of Southeast Asia as a whole. Economically, President Trump and I seek to expand the United States commercial relationship with Indonesia.
Kau berikan kasih dan sukacita Tuhan, supaya gereja kami tidak jadi dibongkar Tuhan. Makasih Tuhan, kami berdoa dan mengucap syukur. Amin. Amin.
As you, President Widodo, have said so often, we're looking for a win-win relationship, and we're confident that we can find it on an increasing basis. We believe we must level the playing field, break down barriers to ensure that American exporters can fully participate in the Indonesian market, the same freedom that Indonesian exporters have had in many sectors in the United States for many years. Mr. President, I look forward to working with you to make progress toward this objective, and I'm grateful for your openness to our teams beginning those conversations in the coming weeks. The United States is also proud to be one of Indonesia's oldest and most engaged defense partners. We are firmly committed to continuing to collaborate on the security of both of our peoples. What I can assure you and the people of Indonesia is that you had the condolences and the prayers of the American people, and the United States stands with you. We will also continue to work with Indonesia to defend the rules-based system that is the foundation for Southeast Asia's peace and prosperity. The United States will uphold the fundamental freedoms of navigation and overflight in the South China Sea and throughout the Asia-Pacific. We'll ensure the unimpeded flow of lawful commerce and promote peaceful diplomatic dialogue to address issues of regional and global concern. Finally, the United States intends to deepen our cultural ties with the nation and the good people of Indonesia. Later today, I'm greatly humbled to have the privilege to visit Indonesia's National Mosque, where I'll have the opportunity to speak with leaders of many faiths. And Mr. President, I'm very much looking forward to that visit and that honor. As the largest majority Muslim country, Indonesia's tradition of modern Islam, frankly, is an inspiration to the world, and we commend you and your people. In your nation, as in mine, religion unifies. It doesn't divide. It gives us hope for a brighter future, and we are all grateful for the great inspiration that Indonesia provides for the world. The United States welcomes all who share our values and strive for that brighter future. I have the privilege of reaffirming the United States' strategic partnership with Indonesia and declaring our commitment to strengthen our bonds of friendship, commerce, and security. Today, I say with confidence, through our continued partnership, the United States and Indonesia will continue to maintain a peaceful, stable, and prosperous Southeast Asia for the benefit of
So a good Christian man by the name of Basuki Purnama, or his nickname was Ahok, this righteous and famous, beloved governor of Jakarta, and loved even by many of the Muslim citizens because he wasn't part of all the corruption and the tyranny there. Well, government-backed Muslim fundamentalists were able to prosecute him on a blasphemy crime, a fake charge. He just simply said that the Islamic extremists were using Quranic verses, taking them out of context against him. And of course, this created a great furor. So not only was he not elected, he was put in prison by the Muslim majority. And of course, this is all going on during Mike Pence's visit. Mike Pence doesn't mention anything about any of this in public, as a statesman should, to stand up for the Christian governor, to stand up for the Christian martyrs and his New Testament brothers and sisters over there suffering persecution. And not just Christians, but Buddhists and Hindus, free thinkers, and many other minority groups are totally persecuted over there by this government, who he lauds as an inspiration to us all, to the whole world, a pluralistic society like ours, like America. I mean, Mike Pence is full of it. And, you know, I'm sorry, but this guy has got no backbone to speak truth. And like a typical politician, he stands for nothing and falls for anything. This is the definition of politically correct. And we don't ever want this man to become president of the United States in his current state. So now Governor Ahok is in prison under the control, torture, and domination of his Muslim superiors. That's why we don't want these kind of tyrants in our country. That's why Western Europe has seen quite enough of them. That's why there's a righteous backlash a backlash for freedom, a backlash for personal and religious liberty, a backlash of hope and love. Well, folks, you know we appreciate you and we thank you for listening to this channel. And we've been doing this since July of 2016. And as you can see from our early reports, we've been very accurate in predicting what's coming down the road so that you and your family know how to pray, know how to prepare, and know how to call your congressman and senator intelligently and discuss with them the issues of the day. So yes, we were one of the first to break the dossier story last October of 2016. And yes, we were one of the first on behalf of Julian Assange to print those lost emails of Hillary Rodham Clinton just prior to the election. We pointed out the CIA and DOJ treason, the weaknesses of Jeff Sessions, the treason of Jim Comey, many months prior to the establishment media, whether it's CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. We were reporting this here first. And we thank God for the insights He's given us into current events and the very deep currents that are moving them. We are working hard to bring you these good reports and to give you a balanced perspective as to what's really going on behind the scenes, what are really the undercurrents moving the surface currents that are often reported on the news. We're giving you really what's moving it all, and we need your support. We need your help. And we've been asking for the last 2 months for folks to give $1 to $100 a month, whatever they can afford. But we've not been hearing from you. So we do need to hear from you if you want us to stay on the air. We certainly want to. We think we have a call to do this right now, to be a voice for freedom. Not just a voice for freedom against globalist tyranny and transnationalism, but to be an inspiration to all of you in your faith, in your country, and in your president. But it is getting more and more difficult to do these videos, and we would love for you to join us at INSPA News headquarters over at www.patreon.com/INSPAnews. That's www.patreon.com/INSPAnews. We need to hear from you today. Please, if you're listening to this report, and you care about continuing to get these great productions we're doing, please lend us a helping hand so that we can do this full-time and actually expand, get a studio eventually, create more and more frequent video podcasts. It's very difficult to do. You know, we have people that get on here and they want to hear more videos, but they're not even donating a cup of coffee that they buy at Starbucks each month, possibly. I mean, Starbucks is a globalist, anti-Trump. I mean, they sell Trump doormats. I mean, Starbucks is a pernicious globalist company, and all we're asking for is less than 1 cup of coffee a month to keep a voice of freedom on the air. If you really love this country, please consider supporting us at $3, $1, $9, $50, $100 a month, whatever you can afford. We appreciate it. God bless all of you. And if you can't afford to give, then the best thing you can do is give us your prayers. So, visit us at www.patreon.com/INSPAnews right now. Go on over there and give us a helping hand. Well, I must admit to you, if you haven't figured it out by now, I truly love this president and his First Lady, Melania Trump. And I'll tell you why. They're willing to stand for truth, even when 360 degrees surrounded by these globalists, these Islamist sympathizing people that are using Islam in an attempt of this crazy banking cabal and these elitists worldwide trying to fundamentally change and destroy, over time, stable constitutional Western republics. George Soros just funded $18 billion to Open Society to try to destroy Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia. They're holdouts to the EU, holdouts to the New World Order, one world government, trying to destroy Nigel Farage and the holdouts of Great Britain First and Brexit. And Mike Pence is over here in Indonesia, for example, placating the globalist Islamists. He won't speak a word over his Christian brothers and sisters being persecuted. Maybe he did in private, but he needed to say it publicly. That's what a statesman would have done. That's what a Maggie Thatcher or a Winston Churchill would have done. He's more like a Chamberlain, Mike Pence, and he's dangerous for freedom in the world because he is a compromiser. For all his goodness and his admirable qualities, it only takes one poison to kill a person. It doesn't require 12 character defects. One is enough. Mike Pence is a compromiser and a ladder climber. He changes when other powerful people are in the room to conform to his environment. He's not a thermostat, he's a thermometer. And in no way can you compare him to the strong leadership that this country needs right now, coming from Donald Trump. I mean, if you just look at he and Melania here, they're not in any way complying with Sharia. But if you look at Karen Pence, look at how she just complies, submitting to the Muslim misogynist by wearing her little headscarf or her hijab, showing her submission to Islam. I mean, Islam means submission, and mainly, if you read Surah 4, it means female submission. But Melania Trump appears proudly as a Western woman without a hijab, without a head covering, as a testimony that women can be liberated around the world. I mean, Melania is not at all like Hillary Clinton or Angela Merkel or Theresa May. In a bold display of character and leadership, Melania Trump does not empathize with the misogynist, male-dominated Muslim leaders of other countries. She won't take the headscarf. Unlike Karen Pence, she doesn't submit to the misogyny, to the woman-abusing Surah Chapter 4 beliefs of her male counterparts. I mean, you have to love Donald Trump and Melania. They are incredible people. And despite what they say about President Trump's past, people like Jerry Falwell Jr. and James Dobson went out on a limb to endorse this president, realizing he had a conversion experience, that he isn't the same man that he once was, that God has raised him up at this point in history to save this republic from people like Mike and Karen Pence, who would continue the legacy of open borders and horrible American diplomacy like George Bush, like Barack Hussein Obama. So we've been tracking Mike Pence and some of the goings-on behind the scenes in the Washington swamp with the open society, globalist people, the elitists, and what might be driving some of their conversations at their home at Number 1 Observatory Circle, and why Mike and Karen Pence are often dissing the president behind the scenes subtly and not so subtly. But President Donald Trump is not only a breath of fresh air in regard to promoting America First, nationalism above transnationalism, and open society. He's one to fight corruption. He's on a mission to drain the swamp and corruption from both parties. And you'll never hear him say a word to support the president in his criticisms of guys like Christopher Wray, who wouldn't answer any questions to the congressional committees, obviously covering up for deep state crimes at the Department of Justice and the FBI, along with Jeff Sessions and Rod Rosenstein, as now the Peter Strzok scandal with these now newly recovered texts the Department of Justice just suddenly found today. It seems like everybody now wants to clean their laundry up. But you can thank the leadership and the presidency of Donald Trump, not Mike Pence, for this. Mike Pence is a backslapping well-wisher to all these kind of cronies. That's what concerns us about Mike Pence. He doesn't seem to have a sharp tongue when it comes to truth. He's kind of amorphous and appears weak to us in his stands against Wray or Comey or any of these traitors within our own Justice Department and FBI who were colluding with Hillary Clinton to obfuscate the truth, to suborn testimony against President Trump, like with General Flynn, Mike Pence working against him with Mueller on that, to ignore exculpatory evidence that would clear people, to use fake evidence and take it to a FISA judge like the GPS dossier, to cover up for Hillary Clinton's bleak spitting of 33,000 emails and now 5 months of Peter Strzok and Lisa Page's text that also went to Annie McCabe. And so we're seeing this James Rybicki, he just resigns. Oh, they say he wasn't fired. He wasn't forced out. This was planned all along. Right. Good disinformation by MSNBC and CNN as usual. Remember, about 99.9% of everything that comes out of their mouth is a lie. So if they say that he wasn't forced out, he was going to resign anyway, don't believe it. So even though we want to like Mike Pence, the Inspo News jury is still out on his situation. But some things never change. And that's the globalist powers that are deeply rooted in Washington. But your president will get to the root of it. Mark my words, he's a great president. He is determined to save this country from these elitist globalists who want to destroy it. He pledged fidelity to we the people and the Constitution, to we the deplorables, to the Trump train, to Trump nation, to the Trumpers, whatever you want to call them, people who just love the Constitution and this republic and want jobs and want a safe neighborhood to live in and want the illegal immigration and the terrorists from stop coming in our country and the drug lords. They want to see America great and prosperous and safe again. And those people he listens to. That's who President Trump listens to. Believe me, it's not just optics with him. Your president is not a politician. He's a statesman. I'll say it again. He's a statesman. He will stand for truth. He's not part of the Washington Inside Group. He came as a businessman. They tried to vet him as a politician, but he's not a politician. He's a businessman, and he's mean business when he came to Washington. He's going to drain this swamp. Now, it's taken him longer than he anticipated, I'm sure, but he also knew he was up against the law. You're talking about a 100-year, deeply rooted system, especially over there in the rogue intelligence agencies, which since 1947 have been a government within a government. And I believe have had something to do with taking out U.S. presidents who they don't agree with. For example, not going back to the gold standard. Of course, the globalists don't want us back in the gold standard. Of course, they want the Rothschildian banking cartel to keep robbing us. The Federal Reserve and the IRS, they're collection agents. And Trump has had enough of this. He wants the people to have relief. He's a populist leader. Talk about what's really moving all this. The reason why these 5 months of text and evidence against Peter Strzok and Andy McCabe and James Comey and Hillary Clinton over there at the FBI was purged. It was bleach-bitted too, believe it or not. We just found this out. You're seeing the face, ugly face of treason and deep state in this country. And I'm sorry, they won't call it like it is at Fox, but we will. It is high treason by the parallel government, the alternative government that wants to destroy this republic, and we're giving you the names and faces of them, and we think that Mike Pence is a major operator here. We think he's a sellout to Soros and Kissinger, to McCain and the rest. McCain doesn't have long for this earth. He's tapped Mike Pence to be one of his ears. I'm telling you, I know this sounds hard to believe, but this man talks glowingly about John McCain in a way that he kind of just shrugs his shoulders at Donald Trump, won't even defend him in that interview.
I have a great deal of respect for John McCain.
Do you think he went too far?
You could say yes. That's okay. On that one, you could say yes. I mean, it's fine.
Trump won't even defend him in that interview. Acts like Donald Trump's less than him, these condescending elitists. I'm telling you, Washington is just chock full of them, and it's time to get rid of all of them. But we're showing you the faces and the names of the alternative government, and they are a foreign government. They are not a duly elected government. These people are traitors. They've committed high crimes against the United States of America. They're trying to usurp this republic, and they're doing it both in Republican and in Democratic names. Obviously, there's more open society, George Soros type globalists in the Democratic Party. But the Republican Party has their share of Lindsey Graham's and Marco Rubio's, people that will censor your free speech, people that will allow an international court to determine your future one day, people who love the blue hats at the UN, who don't care about national borders, don't want a wall. Lindsey Graham tried to usurp, tried to torpedo the wall, tried to kill Trump's base, that little sniveling traitor who just loves seeing himself on a camera, who got 1% of the Republican primary vote. That's how much he's hated. So you see what our fine president's up against. He's a patriot. He's a fighter. God put him in position because he doesn't care about men. He doesn't have the fear of men like Mike Pence. He's not a flatterer. He's just the opposite. Like Inspo News, he tells you like it is. He tells it to your face. It's like MSNBC today was saying, we already know where Donald Trump stands. He says all the time what he thinks. And they act like that's a bad trait. That's kind of refreshing to most of us people in America who are tired of politicians who say one thing and do another, like Mike Pence. We want people like Donald Trump who do tell you like it is, who do wear their policies on their sleeves and what they're really thinking. We love it. And whether he makes a mistake or not, he's honest. Honesty and integrity being a rare commodity in Washington these days. The very thought of duplicity in the heart of the number 2 guy in America is nauseating when you consider that the president right now is over in Zavos, Switzerland, giving the speech of his life, inspiring sovereign nations everywhere. He's got to deal with this? So with all of the hullabaloo and outstanding facts that are coming out regarding the Mueller investigation, which each day are implicating not only Mueller, but Andy Weissman, Jeannie Rees, and 12 other members of his deep state New World Order attack team. And of course, A just discovered text from Peter Strzok to Lisa Page, his mistress. Peter Strzok being the head of counter intel at the FBI, Lisa Page being a top FBI lawyer. I mean, can you believe they're using government phones to do this? Samsung phones, which, by the way, all of this stuff could have been picked up by a foreign country because the Samsungs are easier to break into than an iPhone. We'll have more on that in a minute, but we think that the 5 months of text that were erased, the evidence that was erased, the evidence is under subpoena right now by Representative Nunes's House Select Intelligence Committee. We think those are going to be discovered. But even now, we just see this text from Peter Strzok saying that the whole Mueller investigation he was glad not to be involved with because there's no there. Well, there is nothing there, is what he's saying. He's saying that Mueller's investigation, in fact, is a political witch hunt. He admits it to Lisa Page. And we're talking about a grand collusion, a Mueller-gate. That's a Watergate on growth hormones and steroids, on which has turned into a monstrosity. And I believe this implicates Obama himself, Loretta Lynch, Susan Rice, Hillary Rodham Clinton, James Comey, Andy McCabe, James Clapper, John Brennan. We did an entire report on that last January of 2017. And again, we mentioned it in October 2016. We talked about the dossier. We talked then about treason in the CIA. People are overlooking John Brennan and James Clapper, Mike Morrell and General Hayden. And now you look at National Security Advisor of Obama, Susan Rice, who together with Mike Pence worked to set up General Mike Flynn, the Patriot. Everything that Mike Flynn did was legal. So then why did Pence go after him with a vengeance? People are forgetting this link of Mike Pence with Susan Rice. It's like they worked together in tandem to get rid of General Mike Flynn. And because the whole theory, if you're going to go behind the scenes here, to the fateful meeting of the, quote, secret society now, we're finding out in the text that Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, we don't have the other side of the text that we're going to Andy McCabe. And he was, of course, talking directly with Comey every day because Andy McCabe was the second highest official in the FBI. He was the deputy FBI director, talking to the FBI director about covering up Hillary Clinton's crimes, exonerating her before an investigation. How many Americans would get that benefit? This is elitism politics, elitism justice, New World Order justice, and it's going to stop. It's too corrupt. Americans have had their fill of it. But when talking about even Obama and talking about Susan Rice and Valerie Jarrett, Ben Rhodes and Loretta Lynch, Jim Comey, Andy McCabe, Bob Mueller himself and his horrible team of biased investigators, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page. And so Chief of Staff for both now the current FBI Director Christopher Wray and the former FBI Director James Comey, along with Bob Mueller. Here's a guy that's been around a long time, Chief of Staff for both of them. Mr. Rybicki just resigns in disgrace. Why? Oh, they said he just resigned. Well, I don't think so. Any more than I think that Andy McCabe is resigning just because he wants to right now. I think they're trying to get out from under the heat. I think they're trying to get away from the fact that they obstructed justice, that they try to torpedo President Trump's campaign and President Trump as a person. They've tried to destroy his family and his compatriots around him, and they've already attacked viciously Paul Manafort and General Flynn. Now, Mueller's got nothing. There is no, quote, there, as Peter Strzok says. But that doesn't matter to Mueller. He's making a lot of money off taxpayers, millions of dollars, well over $10 million right now. He and his staff are eating high on the hog, going to five-star restaurants, enjoying this investigation. That it's a witch hunt. We know there's no evidence there. We know that Mueller has nothing for the original purpose of the investigation, which was Russian collusion. Of course, President Trump can't fire him. I wish he would. I've advised that he would. But, you know, Ty Cobb, Jay Sekulow, and all of them are telling him, look, if you fire him, this is horrible, horrible optics. It'll look like the Saturday, Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night massacre, not just a Saturday night massacre, which they always lefties always try to use that Richard Nixon analogy, and that's comparing apples to oranges. We know that's not the case, but the fact is, President Trump is kind of stuck with Mueller right now, and that's all because of one reason, the same reason why this whole thing began in the first place. Jeff Sessions was a coward who recused himself, a weak AG who crawled under his desk, tucked his tail between his legs, wanted a total clear path to becoming AG without answering any tough questions at his Senate confirmation hearings to be AG. So he threw your president under the bus, and he's still throwing your president under the bus because he could fire Mueller right now. That man was interviewed last week and put through the ringer by Bob Mueller for 6 hours, trying to catch him. So, I mean, this guy's so weak, he's allowing the guy he appoints to investigate a very limited scope of Russian collusion with the Hillary Rodham campaign. Now they're trying to get people into perjury traps and to set them up. And here Jeff Sessions' own special counsel is trying to probably catch the Attorney General in some kind of a perjury trap. Try to cross him up like he did Manafort and Flynn, get him on, a technicality, a process, or ancillary charge of obstructing justice, or, trying to say something to cover up or whatever. Mueller's crazy. And Jeff Sessions is even crazier for letting this fox in the hen house, who not only attacked all the hens of President Trump, that supposedly is a conservative Republican Department of Justice, which is not. It's still deep state swamp full of Obama and Hillary Clinton and Bush holdovers. They can't get them out because of these civil service laws, protect these career people. It's really kind of ridiculous how these left-wingers are protected by the civil servant laws. It's like they're in there forever, like a left-wing college professor. They're tenured positions, and the president can't appoint new people. That's why the swamp remains. They just have to reform and repeal these civil servant laws. That's what's protecting the deep state. That's why the roots still go deep in the D.C. swamp. But look, in the meantime, nobody's paying attention to Mike Pence and all this. Mike Pence was the go-to guy with Susan Rice in the Obama administration to catch General Flynn in a technicality and get him away from the president, who he would have protected. Mike Flynn would have protected your president. He's that kind of guy. He's a Fort Bragg general who would give his life for you in this country. And he was like that with President Trump. And he did nothing wrong at Flynn Intel dealing with the government of Turkey. He was a private citizen. He had every right to do what he did. All of this is trumped up by Mueller. All of this is trumped up by Pence working with Mueller. And they work with Susan Rice, of all people. Susan Rice is in there talking to Pence. Now, you tell me Pence isn't deep state. You tell me he's not a New World Order operative. You tell me, after listening to all this, that he's not an Islamist sympathizer, and that his public policies, both foreign and domestic, resemble that of George Bush more than anyone else. That he's a neocon, transnationalist Republican, and probably behind the scenes was a never-Trumper. We know he wasn't going to vote for President Trump. We know that President Trump's only known him for 2 years. And so as all of these revelations come out regarding Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, the destroyed 5 months worth of emails and texts, all this evidence, the president needs to really scrutinize Mike Pence's actions in all this, or inactions. And that's the gist of this report. We've shown you that he's an Islamist sympathizer willing to let his Christians and brothers go persecuted and not say a word because of his Harvey Milquetoast, Eddie Haskell, two-faced policies, that he has low character this way. We've shown you how Karen Pence, literally behind the scenes, loathes President Trump and Melania, calls them vile and disgusting in her own self-righteous way, and how Mother, quote, Mother, controls Mike Pence's will, and how, in her great ambition, she wants him to be president more than anything in the world. We know that from a day-to-day perspective, Mike Pence works very well with the globalist generals, and in a way they're trying to sequester or pigeonhole the president. Got him surrounded 360 degrees. But who is pulling the trigger here in the West Wing? And the very guy who very well may have his finger on the trigger that's subtly pulling it all the time behind the scenes could very well be Mike Pence. And I'm telling you, a lot of people don't want to touch this because, again, Mike Pence got a winsome smile, winsome personality. President Trump seems to like him, seems to be a close friend and confidant, seems to be a conservative, is pro-life, has a nice family, blah, blah, blah. We've gone over all this. But oftentimes, the biggest traitor of all is the one that's closest to the president. That's how the devil works, for goodness sakes. Judas was a close friend of Jesus for 3 years. Same with Benedict Arnold and George Washington. If you study the history of villains, of traitors, they're usually very, very close. And the first 2 or 3 people, a part of friendship or family or a political advisor, they're always like one person removed from that office. It's natural and it's easy to blame Mike Pence, of course, because he's the one to benefit the most if the president's impeached or, God forbid, passes away in office or is assassinated by this deep state treason. which we've warned that they also have contingency plans on. But he's obviously the one to most profit from that. He steps right in. He's a heartbeat away from the presidency, and his wife can't stand Trump and is ambitious for this man. So, in summary, we're paying a little bit more attention to Mike Pence and all this. I mean, it's almost like everyone's got their eyes on the villains from the Obama administration, and they're not looking at the fox that's right there in the hen house. And he's not going after the hen this time. He's going after the top of the pecking order, the rooster himself, the president of the United States. So my opinion is no one's looking at Mike Pence. No one assumes that Mike Pence had anything to do with General Flynn's removal, but he did. And that was the beginning of them getting into the West Wing with these investigations. That's why Mueller's been in there wasting everybody's time, pulling 100,000 documents out of the West Wing, out of the White House, that they've had this, in a silly way, perform this wasted time, this wasted money that's being spent by Mueller on absolutely nothing, and Mueller knows that. And of course, Jeff Sessions, who's a friend of Mike Pence, won't stop the investigation. He won't fire Mueller and take the pressure off your president. So it's up to Representative Nunes, it's up to Jim Jordan, and the various investigative committees in the People's House of Congress, which are hot on the trail now of Mueller and all these phony investigators. Each of us need to call our congressman and demand that the Jim Comey memos, for example, be made public. We want to see what he said. This Comey is a narcissist. But the biggest memos that haven't been released have to do with the FISA abuses that have been given to the Congressional Committee of Representative Nunes by a very high-ranking FBI official. So what does good old weakling Jeff Sessions do? He demands that Representative Nunes not release it to the public. Give me a break. They're not under your jurisdiction. You're under theirs. It's the People's Congress that's investigating your corrupt Department of Justice. Get with it, Jeff, or resign. Get rid of Mueller and take the pressure off the president. We, the people, are tired of this witch hunt, rabbit chase, fishing expedition, whatever you want to call it, an operation for the New World Order. We're tired of it. We don't like these globalists ransacking Washington, D.C. every single day. The American people voted this president in office. We're tired of him being distracted and bogged down by this obstructor of justice, this common criminal with a law degree who has violated every bar association code of ethic that the state he's registered in. He shouldn't be able to practice law. Has violated canon. He has suppressed exculpatory evidence, and he's brought to light fake evidence and tried to deceive judges along with the FBI. This whole thing is so corrupt, it stinks to the high heavens. This guy's on an ego trip going somewhere to happen. Try to pigeonhole your president. And by the way, Mueller and Comey got together on this. These two are in collusion. These two are obstructing justice. These two are obfuscators of justice. They need to be prosecuted, and they need to be investigated. And we've called for investigations of these people for the last 8 months here in Inspa News. But those memos need to come out. The public needs to see how Jim Comey tried to implicate deliberately and falsely and malign your president along with Bob Mueller and Andy McCabe. We know about that meeting where Andy McCabe met with James Comey, and he said, if we can blank Mike Flynn, we can blank President Trump. That was the whole strategy here, and Mike Pence was right there in the thick of it, and people are losing sight of this. Maybe it's because of his nice silver hair and his nice winsome smile and his angelic countenance and aw shucks personality, but the fact is, we're on the Mike Pence connection because he's the closest in the White House to the president. He's the number 2 guy, and he was instrumental with Bob Mueller to get rid of Flynn, and people are forgetting this. Well, we're not going to let the record forget this.
Talk to Mueller. I'm looking forward to it, actually.
You want to? Do you have a date set?
Here's the story, just so you understand. There's been no collusion whatsoever. There's no obstruction whatsoever. And I'm looking forward to it. I would love to do it.
What's your in person?
You know, again, I have to say, subject to my lawyers and all of that.
So this just breaking, apparently members of Trump's legal team and some members of his cabinet have convinced the president to go ahead and have an interview under oath with Bob Mueller. Now, we know that the president has nothing to hide regarding this crazy fake Russian collusion, but that's never been the problem here. Mueller knows that. Now, just a little while ago, the president was challenged and almost baited into agreeing or promising in public to give complete and voluntary allowance for the special counselor Bob Mueller, the hatchet man, and his highly biased Trump-hating staff of DNC hacks to just give him a full range of line of questioning. Who knows where they'd come from? Out of left field, out of right field? I mean, you know, if President Trump ever agreed to this and it actually happened, they would just try to entrap him 100% all the way. It wouldn't have to do with anything about whether he's being truthful or whether he's innocent. It never has anything to do with that with New World Order guys like Bob Mueller. They have no conscience. They have a mission in mind. That is to destroy this national president because he's getting in the way of the New World Order. Now, they're not going to tell you that on Fox, but we're telling you that here because that's what's going on. This isn't just about Mueller loving Hillary Clinton. I don't even think he likes her. It has nothing to do with Hillary Clinton. And I know Sean uses that line of reasoning, but it really is politics 101 in this stage. It's not Republicans versus Democrats, liberals versus conservatives, media that's gone crazy with a drug-induced hatred of Trump. No, all these people in some form or another are globalists, and they don't like nationalists. They see them as pernicious to everything, from science to world peace. So you have the mainstream media, they're talking heads for the New World Order, trying to entrap President Trump to get him to agree to do something. And of course, if they were able to do that, even if he didn't end up meeting with Mueller, it would make him look like he doesn't keep his word or make him look weak. So you can see what the press is doing here. It's all this psyops, this psychological warfare they do on the president 24/7. It's disgusting. These people are, I don't know, they're foreign enemies. They're journalists with American citizenship, but they're not Americans. I mean, they don't care about the well-being of this country. They don't care if he accomplishes anything or does anything good. They just want to destroy him. Well, that's what an enemy does. This is not journalism anymore in this country. This is treachery. This is treason. This is sedition against the elected government of the United States. And so, sadly, I heard some people on his staff, I don't know if it was Jay Sekulow or Ty Cobb or some of the other people in his cabinet like Kelly or his White House attorney, Mr. McGahn. I don't know who is agreeing to this, but someone seems to agree or is persuading him to go ahead and meet with Mueller. Yeah, sure, go ahead. There are other wiser counselors in the White House are saying to the president, look, Mr. President, we think it would be better if Mr. Mueller submitted these questions that he wants to have answered in a form of an affidavit where you swear, under oath, but it's not some kind of present attorneys, DNC hack attorneys trying to catch you in a perjury trap or set you up or try to talk about ancillary issues like your businesses or, and you're going to talk because you're a natural talker and, you're honest and you're bold and you're courageous and they're going to try to take actually advantage of that. They're going to work that to your disadvantage. So, this is a typical federal prosecutor who's under the payload of the taxpayer, has got unlimited funding, wants to keep this thing going as long as he can. Even for optics, if he gets the president to, misquote something from the past or misstate something that he can't recollect, I mean, the press is going to go crazy. They'll go ballistic on it. So there's no good thing that could come from that. And I hope that sharper minds prevail here and keep him from having a face-to-face with Mueller or his staff. I mean, the thought of it's crazy. And I can't believe that anybody in the White House, by the way, mark that person, if anyone in the White House did suggest it, because they're most likely a world order infiltrator, don't have the best intentions for our president in mind. And one more thing about this love affair that Mike Pence has for John McCain, this great honor and respect that he holds in his heart for John McCain. I mean, really, Mike? It's now become almost common knowledge that it was John McCain that took the FBI dossier, dressed it up, and helped them get that over to the FBI. It's John McCain who has done nothing but try to usurp this president ever since he took office. How dare you laud him in public, right with the president sitting next to you? I mean, it's just disgusting. And then when the president was asked to defend himself, you didn't say a thing to defend the president. He had to kindly and diplomatically walk out of that. And by saying, oh, you didn't have to answer because we saw that you didn't want to answer on behalf of the president. We see your heart, Mike. You're not loyal. You're not loyal to the cause of nationalism, America first, make America great again. Yeah, you parrot the words, but in your hearts and actions, you honor people like John McCain, Angela Merkel, Theresa May, and Macron of France. You honor Islam and want millions of more Muslim men in this country. You're for open society and open borders. You're for global warming. You're for the TPP. You're for NAFTA. You're basically a George Bush III walking around and simply lacking the same genetic code. But you're a clone of the Bushites. You're a neocon Republican rhino. And we here at Inspo News are going to call you out and expose you to the public for what you are, because you cannot be on the ticket in 2020. Or at the least, the president has to keep a closer eye on you and not assume you're just his good old buddy, aw shucks friend that he met a year and a half ago. Your allegiances are 20 years deep in with people like McCain, Paul Ryan, Marco Rubio, Lindsey Graham, and even Joe Biden you love and respect. I mean, give me a break. Now, the folks on his legal team, or whoever is giving President Trump's advice, we are questioning that right now because, first of all, the president is very confident in himself, and he should be. He's done nothing wrong. But innocence and justice has nothing to do with what Bob Mueller's up to. So in my opinion, these people are assuming, I don't know if it's Jay Sekulow or Ty Cobb, I sense he's got some weakness in his legal team. This is not something that we would have advised him to do. And we like to think that the truth always prevails, but sometimes it doesn't. Not in this corrupt Washington, D.C. swamp. So from a totally legal perspective, we're questioning the prudence of allowing the president to give testimony to Bob Mueller, his arch enemy, under oath. Now, I mean, because President Trump has done nothing wrong, you say, well, what could Bob Mueller do? He can't hurt him. Truth always prevails. President Trump will just speak the truth. Yes, but we don't know the line of questioning here. We don't know the traps that are laid in there. There might be perjury traps. We saw him do the same tactic with both Manafort and General Flynn. Both good people, both in a world of trouble, even though they're both countersuing. So right from the start here, Inspo News is going to question the prudence of who's ever given the president this advice. I think the president should have answered Mueller in a written form, as in filing an affidavit. And I think the president is so confident in his trustworthiness, which we agree with, that he's just bold enough to face down Mueller. But Mueller's crafty. This isn't going to be a fair type of interview. And I don't think that his attorneys are prepared the legal and technical hooks that Andy Weissman, Mueller, and his people are going to try to put into this president. Now, it may be that we're wrong and that the president has this interview. Bob Mueller gives him a hug at the end of it and says, you're telling the truth, and all of this just goes away. But I think it's going to possibly make things worse for the president. Again, when it's for the betterment of the country and for the republic, we hope we're wrong here at Inspo News. But in our first discernment, in our first intuitive take on this, we got to say we don't agree with this decision. Now, I'll be frank with you, whether it's McGahn or Ty Cobb or Jay Sekulow and some of his other legal staff or some cabinet members, we don't know who's giving him this advice, but we sense it's favoring the globalists. It's favoring the New World Order plan to try to, again, entangle this president. I don't see that anything good can come from this. I think whatever questions that the special counsel had should have been submitted to the president just out of respect in writing, and not have lower staffers interviewing a president of the United States. Now, on another note, the corrupt Department of Justice, with that little coward Jeff Sessions cowering under his desk, just demanded that Representative Nunes not release the memos regarding the FISA corruption. That is, people going to the FISA courts with phony documentation, phony evidence, such as the Fusion GPS dressed-up dossier, in order to get an illegal warrant in violation of the Fourth Amendment, where we're guaranteed the right of privacy and due process, and yet digitally speaking, they're quartering soldiers in our homes, in our businesses, like they did with Mike Flynn, like they did with Manafort, like they've done with many of Trump's family and his compatriots, and like they've done with Donald Trump himself. And Julian Assange has come to that knowledge through a whistleblower in the inner sanctum of the CIA, where they were using Umbridge, Assassin, and Medusa software, spy software, on people, even in the Senate Intelligence Committee. They were spying, the CIA and the NSA, the FBI was spying on the Senate Intelligence Committee. That we know. They were spying on the oversight and judiciary and intelligence committees of the House as well. So there's a battle royale going on between the duly elected government of our Congress and the deep state traitors in the intelligence communities. I'm telling you, that's the heart and soul of the alternative, parallel, shadow government of the New World Order. That's where the heart and soul of it is. They have billions of taxpayer dollars. They have all this software. They can spy. They can go and dress up fake evidence and sell it to a left-wing FISA judge and spy on the political opposition like they did with President Trump. I'm telling you, we're in a very dangerous time in our republic.
Axios is out with a new report that cites 3 unnamed sources who say FBI Director Christopher Wray threatened to resign after pressure from Attorney General Jeff Sessions to fire FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe. According to Axios, Sessions told White House counsel Don McGahn about how upset Wray was about the supposed pressure on him to fire McCabe. A source familiar with the situation told Axios that White House counsel McGahn told Sessions this issue wasn't worth losing the FBI director over. NBC News could not confirm the Axios report. A White House response called Wray a true man of character and the right choice to clean up the FBI's leadership, but it did not address the allegation. Stating in part, President Trump believes politically motivated senior leaders, including former Director Comey and others he empowered, have tainted the agency's reputation for unbiased pursuit of justice.
So, call your congressman. Tell them that they're in charge of the FISA courts. They're in charge of appropriating money to the Department of Justice. They're in charge of appropriating money to the CIA, the NSA, and the FBI. That they have oversight financially over these organizations. That our good president has direct authority over them in the executive branch as per the Constitution of the United States. Call Representative Nunes' office tomorrow and tell him you want him to make the memos public. The American people have a right to see these memos. They have a right to see this corruption at the highest levels of the intelligence community. Again, the Department of Justice is trying to cover its tracks, trying to cover up its crimes and its corruption. And this is coming from Jeff Sessions, trying to tell Representative Nunes to squash this information. Don't let the public see it because it's too damning. That's exactly what's going on here. This evidence, for the first time in U.S. history, probably since the inception of this republic, will disclose corruption at the highest levels of our law enforcement agencies and our government officials. Again, we're not talking about the good, law-abiding, patriotic rank and file of the FBI and the CIA. We're talking about the higher-ups who are members of the, quote, now we've heard the term by the Peter Strzok and his girlfriend, Lisa Page and Andy McCabe, talking about them meeting outside of the offices of the FBI in what they called a secret society.
Strzok and Page were also talking about, imagine this, a secret society meeting the day after President Trump won the election?
Because this is exactly what's going on. You talked about an Illuminati secret society. They actually called it the secret society. And what was the secret society? We need to find out what the secret society was. I mean, you have a couple of patriotic senators on the Hill up there that are livid about this. This is total treason against the United States. Folks, you're seeing a direct attack by this alternative government upon the Republic. The strongest attack ever within the boundaries of this country since the conception. And I'm telling you, Donald Trump's in a key time in history to stop all this. But what the counsel he's getting in the West Wing is starting to concern me. I think they've been infiltrated. And I think they're playing to President Trump's Strong sense of confidence, but they're going to use that against him. I'm telling you, Mueller is going to get in there and try to get him on a technicality, on an ancillary charge. He knows there's no Russian collusion, but President Trump knows that. Mueller knows that. Everyone knows that. That's not the point. Now, this may be a formality. It may turn out that Robert Mueller absolutely is an honest man in the end. Maybe he's afraid of his own retirement, his own legacy. Maybe he's heard the people of the country. Maybe he's got the fear of God in him now. Possibly. He might just have this meeting with Trump, exonerate the president, and everybody go their happy way to make America great again. But we are not certain of that. And I think it's too big a risk that the counselors in the White House have authorized this sworn testimony in person with Robert Mueller and Andy Weissman and his 12 political hacks, who's ever going to be in there, to try to catch this man, this great president that represents we the people, to try to get him on some sort of technicality or failing to recollect something. I mean, there's all kinds of booby traps that could be set here, all kinds of perjury traps. I don't like it. But again, I hope Bob Mueller sends a letter of exoneration a week later and we're done with this. But the upside is that could happen. If so, we're happy here at Inspo News. And you should be too as American citizens, that this nightmare for the president and his administration, all this witch hunt, all these hundreds of thousands of pages of documents having to be provided out of the White House, distracting people from getting to the work of Make America Great Again, which we elected them to do. This Bob Mueller has been a pain in the neck. But if it resolves itself and everybody's satisfied, there's nobody on the left wing that can say anymore that he wasn't investigated by this so-called quintessential straight arrow that Drake Gowdy thinks is so great, then so be it. But again, we don't like this decision. And one more thing about this Mueller interview where the president's going to be sworn under oath. I hope that the West Wing hasn't been infiltrated with globalist attorneys or cocky and overconfident attorneys that think President Trump will just come out smelling like a rose after this particular interrogatory or deposition or whatever it's going to be, this testifying before Bob Mueller under oath. The line of questioning of Bob Mueller here is essential to understand because he's not going to go into the Russian ruse a lot, I don't think. He's going to just use that as a launching pad to talk about President Trump's businesses. Some of the condo sales he might have made 10 years ago or something in South Beach, Miami, or Sunny Isle, North Miami Beach. Sales that were made to Russians, legitimately, legally, but it doesn't matter. If President Trump doesn't recollect something properly or he says something that, doesn't coincide with something he might have said in a talk show interview 5 years ago, the press is going to be all over this. I mean, you talk about bad optics. If Mueller starts going down the mulberry path, branching out into the little tributaries and side creeks to try to snag the president regarding the multitude of his business dealings, that's what I'm concerned about, not the Russian collusion thing. You leave your comments here and let me know what you think. You let me know if you think it's a good move that President Trump is going to go ahead and meet face-to-face with Mueller and stare this devil down face-to-face like a matador against an angry bull, a globalist angry bull. I mean, even the best matadors can take a horn. So that's what I'm concerned about, but maybe this is just a formality. Maybe this will actually help close the case. You tell me what you think. Obviously, we know the president hasn't done anything wrong, but Mueller knows that. So then why is Mueller pushing for this? I'm telling you, I smell something rotten here.
The laws and regulations in effect when I was Secretary of State allowed me to use my email for work. That is undisputed. It clearly wasn't the best choice. And I take responsibility for that decision. I thought it would be easier to carry just one device for my work and for my personal emails instead of two.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone. Okay, in full disclosure,
BlackBerry.
And a BlackBerry. I have an iPad, a mini iPad, an iPhone, and a BlackBerry.
You were the official in charge. Did you wipe the server?
What, like with a cloth or something? No. Well, no. By the way, you may have seen that I recently launched a Snapchat account. I love it. Those messages disappear all by themselves.
So this totally tainted bias Mueller is willing to sweep under the rug all of Hillary's crimes, like a DNC backyard barbecue cook seeks to skewer your president for nothing, not a shred of evidence.
Clearly,
I consider the Trump administration a danger to the world, but I regard it as a purely temporary phenomenon that will disappear in 2020 or even sooner.
George Soros and Bob Mueller seek to depose or dispose of President Donald Trump if they can catch him in a trap. God forbid. It would be duplicitous, it would be deceptive, but that's what Bob Mueller's all about. So we say give it to him in a written form, but there should be no face-to-face interrogatory deposition under oath with this New World Order political hack who's out to destroy the president one way or the other. If it's an exoneration meeting to make it look good and a mere formality, and maybe that's what the president's attorneys are thinking, good for PR, whatever, well, so be it. But we have said all along, we don't trust Mueller. So again, please leave your comments below and tell us if you think this is a good move by President Trump's attorneys. So I'm just sitting here wondering what really went on at those secret society meetings of the FBI off the DOJ campus. It may be that they were all just a dance club, clubbing it a little bit, in high style, eating Taco Bell. Or was it something more sinister, like undermining the U.S. Constitution and the three branches of government? It seems to me like they were getting together to collude to obstruct justice, to protect Hillary Clinton, who they wanted to be president. And even though Jeff Sessions today reported he was finding more of those, quote, missing FBI text or evidence of the communiques between Counter-Intel Chief Peter Strzok and his mistress Lisa Page, the FBI attorney, as well as some of the communiques with McCabe, which of course directly lead to conversations with Jim Comey and this whole cover-up thing to begin with, even goes all the way over to the very suspicious tarmac meeting there with Bill Clinton and Loretta Lynch, the former Attorney General. This corruption, again, is throughout the top of the FBI, the top of the DOJ. We're not talking about the rank and file. We never have on this network. We know the difference. So doesn't your president. When he said that the FBI was in tatters, he meant to say the upper echelon, the New World Order part of it. But I think all of this just spells treason, sedition, a usurpation of the United States of America and its Constitution. I think we're seeing the biggest plot to overthrow this republic that this nation's ever seen since its inception. But when the DOJ starts threatening Representative Nunes and starts telling him do not release any of these memos of the DOJ and the FBI, who, by the way, they came to them through a very deep state informant who's turned against the deep state, this is going to be great information for the American people. We want to really get a bird's eye view of this corruption. I don't know about you, but I'm into truth. I'm into reality. I want to know exactly who the traitors are, and I want those people brought to justice. I want this republic protected for not only ourselves, but for our children. We had Hillary Clinton paying out $12 million to Fusion GPS, an organization she took over from a never-Trumper, somebody who hated Trump more than she did, a rhino GOP neocon who hates Russia as well. I mean, the hate Russia is a whole industry. It's been going on for 75 years. They got to keep it going. They make a living at it. But the real Russian collusion was the guy she was paying was going to Christopher Steele, the MI6 agent, who was a specialist, of course, in Russian Federation spy games. Of course they'd pick him. He knew somebody in the Kremlin. The Kremlin was giving him the salacious lies that he wanted to hear. They were actually sitting government officials in Russia. That's where your real Russian collusion is. Right there. Trump didn't talk to anybody in the sitting Russian government about trying to defeat Hillary Clinton, but there's plenty of evidence here that Hillary Clinton did the exact thing that Mueller's accusing Trump of. There's obvious evidence here in this Fusion GPS. Why isn't Jeff Sessions either firing Mueller or appointing another special counsel to investigate Mueller, to investigate Fusion GPS, to investigate the fake dossier, to investigate Uranium One, to investigate the 33,000 emails that were bleach-spitted away? The servers and the hard drives were all washed in acid. The BlackBerry phones destroyed with hammers. And we're waiting still for Julian Assange's 22,000 IP addresses of exactly who they were spying on. And that includes James Clapper and John Brennan. That whole corrupt group over there in the deep state. All being orchestrated, I believe, by Barack Hussein Obama and Loretta Lynch, Valerie Jarrett and Susan Rice, Ben Rhodes. These are the same people that were the architects of the yellow cake deal that went to Iran. I'm telling you, this corruption is so incredible. It so threatens our national security. It threatens our electoral process. It threatens the very Constitution and the Bill of Rights on which the Republic stands, and people need to be brought to justice. And why on earth Jeff Sessions goes month in and month out, doesn't fire Mueller, obviously he's got nothing, doesn't investigate the investigators, refuses to appoint this independent special counsel that is not politically biased, that will not hire a Hillary Rodham Clinton attack team like Bob Mueller has done with Andy Weissman and Jeannie Reeves and Quarles and all the rest of those people from the Wilmer Hale law firm and his old buddies from the DNC or the Never Trumpers, the people that hate him as much or more than Hillary Clinton. All these HRC donors. I mean, obviously, this stinks to the high heavens. The American people are tired of it. They've got common sense. This is insulting to the collective understanding and the wisdom of the American people. That's who they're insulting here. They're insulting Americans. They're insulting we the people. And we've had enough of it. We here at Inspo News are calling for Jeff Sessions to resign if he doesn't get this thing straight right away. And we don't sense he's got the gumption to do it. He needs to unrecuse himself and start getting involved with this, or he needs to leave his office and let someone come in who will. But again, getting back to our report here on Mike Pence, how does this all tie in with him? I'm telling you, he's buddies with Jeff Sessions and Bob Mueller and Rod Rosenstein and John McCain, and if you truth be told, Hillary Rodham Clinton. To me, Mike Pence is a dangerous GOP regular, an establishment guy, a swamp rat, much along the lines of Trey Gowdy, who appears to be conservative, but has helped to orchestrate and to make these matters worse for your president. On his advice, many of the original Patriot Trumpers who were in the West Wing are now gone, and probably more to come, and they're being replaced with these globalists. And I'm concerned right now that the legal team hasn't been infiltrated. I'm hoping that President Trump is not getting very bad advice from them, which would lead him down a primrose path of a big old Wolverine trap set by that cold-blooded Bob Mueller, who's a New World Order globalist, all the way a tyrant, and they're taking advantage of President Trump's natural sense of boldness, confidence, and his love for truth, taking advantage of that, actually. Now, I'm saying that President Trump is wise, and he's smarter than all these people put together. However, it doesn't matter in these systems of corrupt justice with Bob Mueller, whether someone's right or whether they're just or whether they've done the right thing. None of that matters with Mueller. He's the art of deception. He's an illusionist when it comes to justice, and he's going to try to trick your president. You pray for your president, but I hope he comes out okay. I hope Mueller gives him a letter of exoneration after the meeting, but don't hold your breath. And any of these attorneys like Jay Sekulow or Ty Cobb, McGahn, or any of the others that are giving him this advice, if it's ill advice and it gets our president in a legal bind, well, these guys better start looking for another nation to live in, because they betrayed the president, either with stupid counsel or they themselves are, in a sense, quote, secret society members of the New World Order who have infiltrated the West Wing. We've seen this treason before. We've seen this movie before. We saw it with Steve Bannon. No one could ever believe he would do it, but he did it. We saw it with Michael Wolff getting in the door and Mike Pence allowing it. You think Mike Pence has your president's back? Just look at what's going on with the West Wing. Look at the people who took advantage of the disorganization at the very beginning. Mike Pence didn't help with any of that. Mike Pence ran up the steps of the GOP when those Billy Bush tapes came out, and I'm sure he probably knew about them beforehand. That was the first coup attempt. Before the election ever took place, that was your first coup attempt to take over this ticket. And I'm telling you that Mike Pence is up to no good behind the scenes. He's a friend of Mueller. He's a friend of Rosenstein. He's a friend of Jeff Sessions. And I'm telling you, they've encircled this fine president. But Donald Trump will fight through this. He will defeat this vain coup attempt. And again, we hope Mike Pence proves us wrong or has a Damascus Road, light in heaven experience where he says, you know, I'm doing the wrong thing here. I need to be truly behind the president, not Eddie Haskell and just be flattering him. I need to truly be his friend and protect him. And that Bob Mueller does the right thing and has a, light from heaven on Damascus Road experience where he says, you know what, I'm going to give him an exoneration letter. This is an innocent president. We've distracted him long enough. Let's let him go. But do you think that's going to happen? Well, it could. But if it does, it's only because Pence and Mueller and Sessions and these people are looking for their own self-preservation. We've already seen their rotten fruit. We already know what they're capable of. But if it works out for the good in the end, so be it. There are no doubt GOP regulars and the GOP regulars and the establishment rhinos have seemed to have gotten the upper hand in the West Wing. I mean, just look at this DACA settlement here with President Trump. Not a very good deal for American workers, I think. And it's so painfully honest right now that our good president is up against a lot. He needs our prayers and our support. But I don't think Mike Pence is helping him in any of this. Mike Pence, again, was for TPP. He's for NAFTA. He's for open societies, for open borders. He wants to bring in more Muslims to this country. He's an Islamist, both he and his wife. When they're around Islam and Islamic leaders, they submit to Sharia. Sure, he seems like a nice guy and he's got a choir boy face, angelic expression and countenance. That's all the more concern. It was St. Paul who wrote many centuries ago that the most oftentimes treason and deceptions comes to you is through an angel of light. It's through people who are close to you, people who are the closest to you, because the only way that Lucifer, the fake light deceiver, can get that close. If you're a true red-blooded American who loves his Constitution, loves this free republic, loves the free enterprise system, loves a nation which maximizes personal liberties like no other nation has ever done in human history, then you have to love and appreciate this president and his wife Melania. You have to love this couple. They are doing everything they can to fight a virtual 360-degree circular firing squad of the deep state every time they step into that Oval Office. And they need our prayers and our support. It's that simple. I mean, I was just a happy entertainer, a singer, who saw how deep in trouble this nation was, how few really realized what was happening to them, like the proverbial frog being cooked in semi-warm water as they're turning up the heat, the New World Order, and I just had to sound the alarm. Now, to conclude this report, we have to understand we have a rare opportunity here with Donald J. Trump as the 45th President of the United States. Very rare opportunity. We need to pray for him. We need to call our congressmen and senators. We need to call our judicial branches. We need to call the Department of Justice. We need to email or call or write the White House itself to give a word of encouragement, a vote of confidence. That's the key. Prayer is certainly the most powerful dynamic, the most powerful force in the universe. Though there's a lot of resistance, a lot of warfare, a lot of treason coming from some of the people that are closest to him. I mean, doesn't that sound familiar? I mean, if the devil was going to get at someone, he wouldn't try to hit his target with a perfect stranger, someone who is notoriously bad, or even someone from the Democratic Party, some political hack. Now, we saw that's not the case with Michael Wolff. We can't believe he got on the West Wing, but he really didn't have a lot of contact with the president. That was all a bunch of baloney on his part, but the left wing's always trying to infiltrate the West Wing. But if Judas Iscariot taught us anything, sadly, it's all too often that the treason comes from the people we trust the most and who are closest to us. That's because Satan can get close in that situation by betraying somebody's trust. Now, I'm hoping the best for Mike and Karen Pence. We have shared some things here that should be very concerning to all of us regarding the future of this country if Mike Pence ever became president or ever was elected after Donald Trump's 2 terms in 2024. So why then would God in providence sovereignly put President Donald J. Trump in the office of President of the United States at this time in our nation's history? The fact is, President Trump is a billionaire outsider. He's not part of the DC system. He is not a politician, he's a businessman, and it would take someone with his kind of fortitude, courage, and boldness to shake up the entire DC swamp that's pretty much been a closed system, closed to we the people, for over a century. And so God's good providence has put this man in office. Whether or not you're on the left or the right, whether you think he's perfect or imperfect, God chose this man to be president at this time in our history to unveil, expose, and defeat the greatest plot against this great republic since its inception. And yes, that concerns us. But we also believe in miracles, and we believe the best for people because love always hopes for the best. We do appreciate Mike and Karen Pence, but again, with reservations and calling for everyone to pray for this couple. But expect great things for this country. The most fantastic advances and progress this country's ever known since its inception. I truly believe that President Trump will accomplish all that he has set his hand to do. Yes, there'll be resistance. Yes, there'll be down periods. Yes, there'll be more valleys, it seems, than mountaintops. but in all the struggle in between. This man's a fighter, God's hand's upon him, and he will lead this country with the vision that the Lord has given him to reestablish this great republic, religious liberty, freedom of speech, America that's safe, prosperous, and proud, a sanctuary nation that we can leave our children and they can leave their children as an inheritance for freedom and liberty and prosperity and safety. That's the envy of the world. Well, that's it for today, folks. Pray for your president, pray for your vice president and their spouses, pray for their families, pray for God's wisdom, pray for their protection, and most of all, pray for the counsel that's heavenly, and that they'll be led by a brilliant light beam of truth that radiates from the very throne of heaven. This is Federico Cardella with Inspo News. God bless all of you. God bless America. And God bless the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. We're fighting to get you the truth, and we need your support. So don't forget us over at Patreon, please. We've got to start hearing from more of you if you want us to stay on the air. I mean, Fox claims to be fair and balanced. Not. They are owned by the Murdochs, globalist friends of the Soros. They're owned by a Saudi oil sheik tied in with the banking cartel, Rothschilds, and Rockefeller, and Chase, and London Bank, and the bank in Brussels. I mean, it's all working together for one thing, to rob you of your individual freedoms. The United States Constitution, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, those kind of people stand in the way. And of course, none other than God and we the people stand in their way. And so believe me, the next few years they're going to have their challenges too. It's just too bad that President Trump has as his number 2 guy a basic run-of-the-mill GOP regular, rhino globalist, a friend of John McCain in Open Society, who has no idea, no discernment as to why God would put a wrecking ball of Veritas in office at this time in our history. If the DOJ and the FBI and the CIA and the NSA and many of the other branches of our government in Washington, D.C., if they are ever purged of vile corruption and treason, you'll be able to look to this 45th presidency as the greatest mountain peak for justice, transparency, and American patriotism since the presidency of George Washington.